Okay. Now, we're taking baby steps. We learned how to draw basic forms. Now we're turning the basic forms into actual objects. And we've got this handout again from John Ganagy. And we're going to use his handout to help us transform forms into objects. So, I asked you before, what form do we start out with this stack of books? A cube, very good, but you do start with a square. All right, so I'm going to draw a square. You want to make sure that the lines are parallel with the edges of the paper, meaning you do not want them, you don't want your square to lean one way or the other. You want it to be parallel with the edges of the paper. Okay? Then I was explaining that we see the top of the cube, and I'm drawing a diagonal that goes back in the distance, and these two gradually get closer and closer together. Same with this bottom diagonal, okay? You want them to be at a similar angle, but eventually they're all going to converge into one point, which is called the vanishing point. When you're drawing and you're trying to create the illusion of depth, it's when things get smaller in the distance and things get bigger as they get closer to you, it is called foreshortening, okay? Now, I've got my cube. You do not want to draw yours dark because you are going to have to get rid of the lines when we're done, because you know how Miss Stowe is about wanting to see edges and not lines. Now we want to look and see how many books there are. Y'all help me here. This right here at the very bottom of this stack of books, is that a shadow or is that another book? Okay. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books, okay? So there is halfway through the middle, I'm going to put one line that is parallel with the top and bottom of the cubes. Who can tell me what parallel means? They are.
Two lines that's not touching each other.
They don't touch each other. You're correct, and they are across from each other, but they would never ever touch. They're parallel. Okay. So I'm going to draw one guideline there, and then there's two more that look like they're pretty much divided equally right above it. So I've got, this is divided for 3 books at the top. And then there's one division down here, meaning that these books are a little bit wider. Now, we want to make sure we're looking at the picture, all right? If we're not looking at the picture, it defeats the purpose of trying to draw what we see. All right, I need to show that we can see the sides of the books. So I'm going to put a line at a diagonal that is pretty much similar to the one that's on the bottom. I'm going to draw another diagonal where it meets right here. And I'm going to draw another diagonal. And you want them to pretty much match the top and bottom of that side. Okay, so I've got the main divisions. Now, what I'm going to do, this is going to be the two of the books meeting together. I am going to draw a scalloped edge right here. So I'm going to have a hump, a hump, a hump, a hump, and a hump. Okay? And then on the other side, I'm going to draw another hump so that it just connecting one line to the other. Okay? All right, now I'm going to take my eraser because I don't want this strong line right here for this side of the cube, because these are the ends of the books where you can see the pages. So I want the edge of the book covers to protrude out just a little bit farther than the edge of the pages. Then you can just put a slight suggestion of the pages. I kind of do another scalloped edge, but very lightly. Okay? So we've got the main construction of the book, but I still need the inside cover right here. So I'm going to do another hump in between right here. Now I'm going to do my shading because I've got the main outline done. Now we got to get rid of the lines too, because you know how I am about the lines. You got to have your shading stump. And we'll talk about the different types of techniques that we went over yesterday. Remember, we just blended one value right here. This was blending two values where you pull the dark into the light. And this one was doing a soft edge by pulling the dark into the light as well and making a blurry line. So hold on just a moment. Okay. Now I'm going to do my shading. I'm going to use my ebony pencil for my darkest values. Okay. Now, I am going to shade the blackest parts. And what do you call this method that I'm using for shading? Circle method. Okay. And what did I call it before we watched the video? The oval. So we'll call it the circle method from now on. So I'm going to look at this picture, and wherever I see black, I'm going to shade with my ebony pencil and put my blackest blacks. You want to make it look like the picture of the books that we're looking at. Realize this whole side is not black. There are some grays in there. All right, so these are pretty white right here. So I'm going to use my eraser to lighten that up some. And then there's a cast shadow from the cover of each book just below. And it's a pretty sharp edge.
Well, I can't see my lines anymore.
Okay. Then I'm going to take my 2B pencil. There's not a lot of lighter grays in here, okay? But I'm going to just put the suggestion of these pages where you see them. All right, now I'm going to do my cast shadow. And if you look at how I measure the cast shadow is the width of the books, okay? So I'm going to measure the width of my books with my fingers. You can see right here. And it's going to come out really past off the edge of the paper. So this is going to come out this way. I'm going to shade in what I see. And you want it to go at a similar angle as the side of the books. Now, because I don't like lines, I only want to see edges, I'm going to lighten up my outlines. And then I'm going to take my shading stump. And I'm going to pick up some of this dark. And I'm going to use it to lightly shade in the top so that it is just a little bit darker than the paper, so that this would be an edge rather than a line. I'm going to smooth out my book covers where they meet. I'm going to do the circle method just a little bit to blend out the book covers. I don't want you to I want you to barely touch the paper with your blending stump. You don't want your whites to disappear. Okay, then take your eraser and clean up the edges. And there you have a set of books based off a cube.